Steve. Thank you. Okay, I'm calling to order the Finance Committee meeting on Thursday, May 1st at 2 p.m., fully on Zoom. Roll call, Joe,
Aye.
Stephen Maury.
Aye.
Thank you. Peter,
Here.
Rob,
Here.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Let's see, I don't see anyone else. Okay, me, aye, obviously. All right, I am going to open the, may I have an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Made by Peter. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, seconded by Stephen, actually was first.
Second.
Thank you. Joe,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy.
What? Sorry, it was frozen. I'm sorry, Denise.
That's okay. I'm just
Well-
looking for an approval of the agenda.
Oh, yes. Sorry, you were.
Thank you. Rob,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye, and if you missed me in the roll call, it's because I confused the unmute button with the leave meeting button. Sorry about that.
I see you're here.
user error. Joanna, we're looking for an approval of the agenda.
Aye.
Thank you, Joanna. Perfect. All righty. Okay, I will now open it for public comments. Does anyone have any public comment they want to make? Seeing no hands raised, I'm going to close public comment. Thank you. Okay, first item that's up is review, discussion, and revote of Article 24, appropriation OPEB Benefits Trust Fund. First, I need a motion to reopen the article, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Peter. May I have a second? Second from Jill. Okay, roll call. Joe,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Denise, aye. It's unanimous. Okay, Brian, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members of the committee, for reopening it. The reason that we asked you to reopen it is when we were putting the voters guide together, we in going through, we noticed that there was an allocation of certified free cash of $500,000 in this, which article along with the $500,000 raise and appropriate. And when we had you vote it originally, I think we still were waiting for free cash to be appropriated. So we're asking for you to have a motion that $500,000 be appropriated from fiscal 26 tax levy and other general revenues, and that $500,000 be transferred from certified free cash in the treasury of the town to be deposited by the treasurer into the other post-employment benefits trust fund, so that that motion will be consistent with what is in the warrant, as the original motion only had the raise and appropriate from the tax rates.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian on that? Okay. So with that, may I please have a motion to,
I move we approve.
okay, thank you, Joe.
Second.
Seconded by Jill. Okay, roll call, Joe,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Denise, aye. It's unanimous. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
All right, next item agenda, review, discussion, and potential motion on technical amendment for Article 13, appropriation R Island Home of the 2025 annual town meeting warrant. And Brian, I'm going right back to you.
Okay, so Stephen, do we want to start from the beginning on this, Madam Chair? Is that what we want to do? Because I know we had presented the Stephen, can you put the technical amendment up? Actually, I think is where to start.
Yeah, let's just do that.
Okay. That's fine.
And there was a lengthy discussion at our last meeting on this, so I'm really looking to the committee to say, did you have further questions? And if so, please raise your hand.
Do you want me to kind of just go update everybody again on that technical amendment, Madam
Yeah,
Chair?
if you would, Brian.
Sure. So for the entire committee's just reminder, We did get the gross maximum price contracts. It came in more than we had anticipated, when you had originally voted for the 105 million. We need a total appropriation, in Article 13 of $125,392,502. We are proposing, originally, when we had, the FinCom had voted, the committee voted, we were asking for a complete borrowing authorization of 105 million. With this supplemental article, we're asking for 1,500,000 be transferred from certified retained earnings in the sewer enterprise fund. And as a reminder, the reason that we're doing that is that we will be moving some of the Sherburne Commons housing from the site location to the hillside location down near the sewer treatment plant. And the expectation is that sewer employees would likely be the employees that would inhabit the housing that has been moved to that location from the Sherburne Commons site. So we made the decision that they do have enough retained earnings to help fund that move, since it's likely that those employees will be the primary beneficiaries of that housing. Along with that, we are proposing using $7,585,000 of retained earnings in our Island Home Enterprise Fund. They have just under 10 million currently in their enterprise, in the retained earnings in the enterprise fund. 7,585,000 would, although not specifically be earmarked, but we're expecting that the $4.5 million of that would be used for the put options that we have on 2 of the cottages on the Sherburne Commons site. That Sherburne Commons could exercise those options, and the town would buy that additional housing, which likely would be used for OIH employees, since it's directly across from the facility on the site. And then $3,085,000 is the cost of the furniture, fixture, and equipment. So that's how we arrived at the $7,585,000. $3,085,000 for furniture, fixture, and equipment would be consistent with what we typically would fund that type of purchase with from one-time sources, such as retained earnings or free cash. Leaving a borrowing in the supplemental article of $116,307,502 to be issued by bonds and notes of the town, and contingent on a Proposition 2 1/2 debt exclusion vote.
Thank you, Brian. Questions?
Denise?
Yes, go ahead, Jill.
Brian, I guess I'm confused about the money going to, you're saying it's to buy the property for the employees that Sherburne Commons already uses?
So we have to, there are 2 houses that are on the site location that have to be relocated, and will ultimately be building Sherburne Commons new employee. It's used for employee housing, and ultimately we'll be building them new housing. We saw this as an opportunity for us to also acquire, in this process, additional employee housing. So those will be moved to the hillside area down by the sewer treatment plant. We'll move those structures, and then within the appropriation is the construction of housing on the site for Sherburne Commons in a different location.
Gotcha. That's what I thought. It got phrased kind of funny.
Thank you, Jill. Jeremy?
Yes, Brian, if I understand this correctly, since we last spoke to you and talked about this, the cost is now about 20% higher. Is that correct?
Thereabouts, yes, Jeremy.
Okay, thank you.
The net borrowing is 10% higher, because we found these funds elsewhere to help cover some of it. Is that right?
That's correct, for this article here. But we also have to remember that in some of that increase is contingencies that may or may not be needed, and are there in the event we need them. And if we don't need them, then we don't borrow them. So there are costs that we were carrying that, if they're not needed, will never be borrowed, and thus will ultimately reduce the cost of the overall project as well.
Other questions for Brian?
Denise?
Peter?
Yeah, I think everybody should realize that the one thing that's different about this this project from previous projects the town's done is that this is a fixed price. So as long as we start by September, this price cannot go up. it would have to be absorbed by the contractor. So this is the deal, the way it's structured, and not like other things that happen through the town where they've gone back to the well so many times. This is the price. It's finished, it's done, and if we can start in September, this will be the price.
Thank you, Peter. Brian, does this include the payments, all of the payments in total to Sherburne Commons? You're muted, Brian.
4 years into Zoom and I still can't remember the name. The $125 million supplemental request includes all of the project costs, which includes all of the payments to Sherburne Commons.
Thank you. John?
Madam Chair, just a quick point of clarification to Peter's point.
Sure.
This would be a contract that would be signed right after a successful ballot. You would see a shovel in the ground around September. But to be clear, the process of contracting and starting would be in June, so that we could affect a September groundbreaking.
Thank you, John. Other questions? Okay.
Yep.
So,
Sorry, I'm having trouble finding the button.
okay, you can just wave at me. Go ahead, Stephen.
Great, okay. So following up on Peter's point and then John's, at what point is this price locked in? We had heard previously that it was, and there was some flexibility, unfortunately not in our favor. So does the price lock when the shovel goes into the dirt, or does it lock in June after a successful ballot?
It's in June when we sign the contract, the guaranteed maximum price contract with Consigli. And also just to remind everybody, this total project budget does include $10 million worth of contingency funds. Contingency funds, if not spent, go back to the town. There's $5.5 million in contingency that we would have carried on the project. Another $4.5 million in contingency specifically for tariff callouts in the event that whatever happens in the tariff world. So we have monies to offset that. In addition, within the GMP, though, by virtue of the way the delivery method works, is that any unused allowances or those sorts of things that are priced into Consigli's proposal, that is all town money. Where this is a public project, there are no cost savings clauses. If they don't spend it, they don't get half of it. If they don't spend it, it comes back to the town. So all money unspent is Nantucket's.
Thank you, John. Rob?
So what are the scenarios that allow them to tap into that contingency? So they have budgets for certain line items, and are they able to exceed those, or what triggers the ability to use that?
So it's a gret question. So the way that would work is through through your project team, your OPM, and your designer. Any sort of allowances that are there. A perfect one is winter conditions, as an example. They're going to carry X hundreds of thousands of dollars for winter conditions, what it costs to clear snow and do all those things through the winter. If we have mild winters, the allowance should be enough, right? And what they'll do on a monthly basis is, when they submit their requisition, is as they say, okay, this month we spent, $25,000 in winter conditions, whether it's temporary heat or plowing, and then they would itemize those things. So our on-site construction site manager will be there documenting and confirming, so that when we get a requisition every month, we're not guessing where it came from. If they don't notify us of the use of an allowance, we're going to have a tough time convincing us that we should allow you to, tap into it. And I don't want to also, please understand, the amount of allowances that are in the GMP are a small portion compared to the overall price that's given to us, which is truly bought out trades. X amount for the plumbing, the electrical, the steel, all of those things are broken out in this guaranteed maximum price. The allowances are for the unexpecteds that, I shouldn't say the unexpecteds, they're for the items that they know have variation, winter conditions, temporary heat, temporary protection. If Nantucket has a easy winter, there's less use of that and we get it back. If there's more, we would then have to tap one of the contingencies, and that's why we carry them. but all of that would be done in a very open book manner. We know when it's coming, there's notice provisions for using it, and then we have to review and confirm before we allow them to bill us.
So for things like the trades, labor on the project, those are fixed absent like we make a change order to the project and then right, there's something different like.
That's correct. And change orders are the other piece that can tap the, not allowances, but the contingencies. So as we're going through this, somebody says, you know what, it would be great if we put another door here. Okay, well, why? All right, is there a good reason to do it? Then let's get a price for it. And then we would need to see a pretty broken out, you know, cost proposal for that. If everyone says yes, stamp it, becomes a change order. And only at that point would we, you know, allow them access to, you know, to those contingency monies.
So if we build it as designed, other than like winter weather, what are the other types of things that would potentially eat into the contingency?
Unexpected, you know, what do we find? And do we find anything else in the ground, you know, out there, you know, buried, you know, ledge? I mean, it's Nantucket. There shouldn't be much of that, right? A buried tank that wasn't, you know, wasn't expected. It's usually subsurface for us. Once the foundation is in the ground, that's the first big exhale. Okay. Also included in this is, you know, we're going to be moving houses, right? We're going to be moving these houses. So when we take them apart, you know, there might be some extra, you know, bracing or sorts of things. They only know so much, right? So we'll be, that would be the other source to me of unexpecteds of moving those houses. But, you know, being Nantucket, you know, being a lot of sand, we feel a lot better than if we were, you know, trying to build this building in downtown Boston where we could, you know, run into goodness knows what, you know, underground.
Thank you. That's all helpful.
Thanks, Rob. Joe?
John, what is the process for resolving disputes if you have disagreements?
So, you know, we're a big believer in if you actually have a dispute, waiting doesn't help to solve anything, right? So, you know, we're there to help try to mitigate any sort of disagreements. You know, if you're talking about an interpretation of the drawings, right? Some of the benefits of having the CM on board, and they've been through the drawings and they've been through them and they've asked those questions. So really using this delivery method was one of the first and biggest ways to try to mitigate disputes. But if we have them, you know, we want to deal with them up front. We want to try to get them taken care of, because a reservation of rights doesn't do anybody any good. And it just means that the town's going to spend money on attorneys later, and we don't want to do that. So try to hit things that come up early and often. Our architect team from SMRT is great and super responsive. So if there, you know, anything does come up, and what we've seen over the past months as we've prepared for this and prepared for the bidding of the project was a pretty good spirit of collaboration and really trying to work together. I mean, nobody likes the price, but at the end of the day, I think everybody is fairly confident in the team and our ability to be able to move this thing forward with, you know, with an approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thanks, John. John, are you at the ATM on Saturday?
Yes.
Oh, Joanna?
Just a couple of questions. So we had appropriated, I think, $8.5 million for the design and development of the plan. Is there how much of that money did we spend?
Spent about six and a half of it.
So does the balance of that money also get moved over to the cost of the project?
It's reflected in the numbers. Yes, it is.
Okay. And then my second question is, in terms of the cost per bed, right? How does this compare? Because the cost per bed seems very high. And how does that compare to the general cost in Massachusetts per bed in a nursing home?
So I'll defer this question to Craig for a second. So before you do that, you've got to divide everything by about 45%, right? Nantucket's cost historically for building anything are 40 to 50% more than on land.
Sure.
So if you took that, so if we took our price, our GMP, and took away the housing and divided by the 1.45, how does, I'll defer to Craig for that one.
Again,
Sorry.
Okay, Craig Piper from SMRT. Sorry. So it is hard to compare projects to projects. Every site is different, as John said. But what we did an exercise early on. I apologize, I don't have the numbers in hand, but we did a number of analysis of different project types and square footage for equivalent skilled nursing homes that we certainly can have ready. I don't have that in front of me right now, but if that's something we need for ATM, we certainly can have that.
Because I'm just doing a little quick research here, and even if we allow for 50%, right? If we take 50% of the project cost away, and we do 45 beds, you're at like $1.3 million per bed. And according to our friend Google, the Massachusetts average cost per bed is somewhere between $250,000 and $400,000.
So
But
one thing we also
So-
have to watch is when those things were constructed. There's not been many new nursing homes constructed recently.
And it's important to note that the cost of construction doubled in the last 5 years. So to Craig's point, if one hasn't been built, in that period of time, you've got to cut our number in half again or double the old number to try to get it to be a comp.
John Giorgio?
Thank you, Denise. The other thing, Joanna, that you have to be very careful about is this is a prevailing wage job.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to add, I'll defer to Craig and so forth, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if that adds 30% to a project cost. Nursing homes are not typically constructed as municipal facilities. They're constructed by private nonprofits. And there are also other requirements on public construction projects that will increase the cost, and so that you're quickly out of an apples to apples comparison.
No, I was more thinking about a range. And again, according to this research, the most recent one built in Massachusetts was in the Pioneer Valley, but it had 132 beds. So that's not really a comparison. But there is one scheduled there has been something on Martha's Vineyard that has been built very recently.
About to be built.
It's
Currently under
privately held.
Yeah.
That's a totally different project.
Yep. No, I get it. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Joanna. Any other questions?
Can I make a motion?
Okay. I'm just checking for questions first,
sorry.
Peter, but yeah, that's okay. Seeing no more. Okay, Peter, what's your motion?
Motion to adopt the new numbers on our island home.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, roll call. I'll start with Joanna.
No.
Oh, I think I'm gonna have to keep score. Great. Give me 1 second. Okay, Jill,
No.
Stephen,
Aye.
you said aye, right, Stephen?
Yes, aye.
Okay, Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
let's see, Jeremy,
No.
okay, Joe,
No.
who did I miss?
Yourself.
Myself, okay, no, so it's that, now John, so that failed, do we make another motion?
I'd want to know what other motion you want to make.
No, I'm just saying, motion to adopt,
It failed,
failed 5-4,
right?
so don't we have to make another motion? It's not by default motion not to adopt, is it? Oh, Chris, I forgot that, did I call you?
You called me, I was aye.
Okay, thank you.
So, Denise, because the Finance Committee is not going to make a positive motion, then if this article is called, which I assume it will be, I will assume there will be a positive motion made.
By
You're
yes,
by someone else, but you have voted no on
right.
any kind of a positive motion, so I don't think you have to do anything more.
On the
Okay,
technical amendment, we voted no on the technical amendment.
correct, but that's what the voters are voting on, the technical amendment. Chris, the new number is what the voters will vote on, not the 105.
I don't think it's realistic. It's not realistic for anyone to make a positive motion on the 105 because that will not enable, even if that were to pass, it would not enable the town to proceed with the project because you will not have a sufficient appropriation to certify for the guaranteed maximum price.
I've had a positive motion, John.
Okay, well, you can make a positive. I suppose if you want to make one, that's fine, Chris.
Well, no, I just have a question. I'm just raising my hand to ask the chair a question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Chris.
So we have a adopted positive motion in the warrant on 105, or rather
Correct.
and now an amendment has brought forward and the amendment failed. Doesn't it revert to the motion as printed?
I don't believe it does, Chris, because it's not an amendment.
Well, we're calling it a technical amendment.
But it's not an amendment. It's a new main motion that is being offered as a technical amendment. Maybe you could help me, Chris. What is your point?
Well, I think my point is that we're trying not to confuse the voters, and now I'm completely perplexed. So we have in the printed warrant a positive motion on the article. Now we've brought forth a technical amendment, and the amendment has failed. So the positive motion has not been amended, but the positive motion still stands.
I see what you're saying.
Well, Chris, I'm not sure how that helps you.
I'm not sure. I'm just trying to understand, John. I'm not trying to win a point. I'm just trying to understand what we're putting in front of the voters.
I suppose the Finance Committee could rely upon their original vote. That gets you $105 million.
Yeah, I get it. And it's not enough. I
It's
understand.
not enough, and it will not be sufficient for this project to move forward.
So I get.
Yep. Joe, hold on. No, wait, I want to go to Libby first.
I was just gonna say that, I don't know if this is a way to proceed here, but since we know that the original motion does not contain enough money, and the Finance Committee is not prepared to move forward with the amount of money that it's going to take to do this project, maybe it stays as is, and the select board, if they so vote, would put forward the motion that was voted down by the FinCom.
That would be the cleanest, I would
Right.
think.
Sorry. When called on.
Go ahead, Chris. Joe, I'll get to you in a minute.
So we keep the positive motion that we have, but then someone brings forth an amendment on the floor to amend that so that it's workable. Is that what's being said?
Yes.
So if I can make an example. So when we did the neighborhoods first several years ago, and we put in $10 million for developing affordable housing under the Neighborhoods First program, and Jason Bridges stood up and changed it to 20 million when the Finance Committee had said 10. So that's effectively what would happen here, is that one of the chair of the select board would stand up and say, we need another 20 folks.
Yep. Okay, so I think that was my point, that we don't have a negative motion on the underlying article. We still have a positive motion on the underlying article, but it doesn't do anybody any good unless it's amended to a higher amount and the amendment passes. Which is different than saying we have a negative motion on the underlying article.
I'm gonna go to Joe and then I'll go to Jill.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we have a negative motion, not that we move not to approve and have a vote on that motion. That seems to me, that either passes or fails.
Okay, Jill, what are you gonna say? And then I'm gonna go to John Giorgio on this, because this is getting even confusing.
Yeah, no, I thought that this motion, whatever happened today, I thought that this was replacing our motion. That's how I viewed today's vote, even though, because it's not being, the voters aren't given a chance to vote on $105 million. That's not what they're voting on.
Right.
They're not, so they're not giving to, we're not offering them two votes, right? We could go back and offer them a different vote, and that doesn't make any sense to me. I thought what they're voting on is just this in Article 13. There's not Article 13 A, B, C, D.
Yeah, I think the word technical amendment is what's getting confusing, because typically before, when we've done technical amendments right before town meeting, it's a new number, and that's the number that then gets voted on. So it is actually replacing the prior one. That's always been my understanding, but the fact that it's called a technical amendment has caused some confusion at this point.
Yeah, that's
So-
just internal terminology in my view. So
Yeah.
that's not.
So I'm going to John Giorgio and to say, all right, so we just voted down the technical amendment or the new number, the 125. So Joe has proposed that we make another, I guess first we'd have to reopen that. And then once, if we agree to reopen it, then Joe would make a motion not to adopt. Somebody would second it, and then we would vote on that. And that way it would be cleaner?
Madam Chair, I wasn't expecting to work my brain so hard this afternoon. I
Neither was
apologize.
I, John, neither was I.
I do, on further reflection, I do agree with Chris, however, that without any further action by the Finance Committee, your original motion would stand, which is 105 million. And I certainly concur with Libby's suggestion that that would be amendable on the floor of town meeting to go to the full, to increase the amount. If you want to make a negative motion now, I think you would have to first vote to reconsider your prior vote,
Right, that's what I was
which
asking.
was to
Okay,
approve the 105.
sorry, which one? We have to reconsider the 105 one. Okay.
Yeah, and then if that motion to reconsider passes, then anyone could make another motion with respect to this article.
Okay, thank you. Joanna, and then Jill. Joanna had her hand up first.
That is completely confusing to me because I think that we're trying to tell, I guess I have 2 points. One of which is that, is it not printed in the town little booklet that we approved the 105, right? So this technical
Correct.
amendment, my understanding of technical amendments also is it supersedes what we had done before. So effectively voting no on this cancels out the 105. What happens after that, I think happens at the town meeting, right? So I'm not sure why we would do anything else, right? Because I think that the story that I see in front of us is we had a vote on a number, which was a tough, close vote, right? And then we had a vote on another number, which was a tough, close vote. And as a person who changed their minds from the first vote to the second vote because of the increase in the amount of money, I think that that's a legitimate reason to change a vote, right? Or to change how the Finance Committee responded to the original question. So we were asked for $105 million. The answer was yes at 105. We got to, we're at $125 million. The answer is no. So I guess I don't understand why we would have to do anything else.
Thank you, Joanna. Jill?
Yeah, I agree with Joanna. I also where is it where the voters are going to vote on 105 million? Where is that now? Because I assumed the moderator was going to put up the amendment.
Right.
It's in the warrant booklet.
I understand that, but there are plenty of things in the warrant that aren't gonna be voted on. Now, even though that it's printed, I mean, the moderator, I assume, would put up the amendment to say, no, it's actually this, and here's the motion. I can't fathom that it's a good idea for the proponents of our Island Home even to make people take two votes. I don't think that's a good path for them either. Being respectful of what they want.
I don't think there'd be two votes, Jill. There would be the Article 13 would get called. And it would have to get called now at 105. Let's pretend it's still the 105. And then one of the select board would stand up and say, I am proposing to amend the 105 to 125. That's what you're going to be voting on, folks. So that's just like the neighborhood first. Finance committee approved motion to adopt on 10 million, and Jason Bridges stood up and changed it to 20.
So this was always the plan?
No. I'm not saying that's the plan. I'm saying that's what happened last time.
No, I get
With-
that. I appreciate that, but that isn't what's going to happen on Saturday before we just voted. So I want to know what the plan was for this Saturday based on the new numbers coming in and how the moderator was going to run the floor.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Please, I was going to call on you, John. Yeah, go ahead.
The plan now, if the Finance Committee takes no further action, what will be, if this article is called, the motion as printed in the Finance Committee booklet is what will be on the floor from the Finance Committee, and that's 104 million. There will have to be, the amendment will have to do more than simply raise the amount. The amendment will also have to deal with the other sources of funding that are now shown in that technical amendment. So essentially what would happen is there would be a motion to amend on town meeting floor that would supplement what we're calling the technical amendment as a new main motion. And that's an amendment to the Finance Committee motion. It would have to be approved by a majority vote. And if it's approved by a majority vote, then the body would vote by a 2/3 vote to approve the technical amendment.
Why would it be 2/3, John?
Because it's a borrowing.
Okay. So, on the one, on the 105 always had to be, Article 13 always had to be a 2/3 vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Some simple majority on the election.
Thank you, Peter.
And it's a simple majority to amend.
Okay, simple majority to amend, 2/3 for borrowing. Do you
Yes.
think after 100 years I'd get this? Okay, Joe.
This is all Byzantine, and I think we ought to vote on reopening our original
Oh, come on.
and make it clean and simple. And if we reopen it, then we can have a vote. I would ask that we agree to not to approve, and that it be crisp and clear. This motion on the floor, and that's the voters are going to get confused, and I'm almost confused as to what we're doing.
Okay, so here's okay, John, go ahead.
So this is simple. If you want to reconsider your prior vote, someone needs to make a motion to reconsider.
I make that motion.
Okay, Joe, hang on a second, because Rob had his hand raised. I want to see if Rob has a question before, and then I'll come back to you, Joe. Rob, you had your hand raised.
I'll let it go, but what's the process for reopening? Is it specific people who have the ability to?
No, so the people who technically, right? I hate to use that word. John, don't the people who were in the majority last time have to be the ones willing to reopen the vote? So for example, Joe can't, because it's Joe, Jill, and myself were in the minority last time. We voted no, and 6 other people voted yes. So it has to be one of the 6 that makes the motion to reopen. Is that correct?
So Denise, we're getting into the weeds of parliamentary procedure here.
I know.
And as I have said before, when you're dealing with a public body, the requirement that the person has to be on the prevailing side, it can only be a person who was on the prevailing side to make a motion to reconsider.
Okay,
I don't, in my opinion, I don't think that's a Robert's Rules of Procedure issue, and I don't believe that you are strictly governed by Robert's Rules of Procedure. So that's a long-winded way of saying that I think anybody can make a motion to reconsider. That's my opinion.
okay, all
I
right,
know others might disagree with that, but that's my opinion.
okay. Chris?
Yeah, it's fine. This will go the way it goes, but I just want to point out, we're still going to have the confusion in a two-step process on the floor of town meeting. Because first it's going to have to be called, amended, a vote to amend, and still, so it doesn't really clean it up to go this way.
Mhm.
I would agree with Chris on that. And here's my comment. We have 15 minutes left. We have still more technical amendments to get through. We have to be done by 3 o'clock. So I am actually of the opinion that it is what it is at this point.
Mhm.
So leave it and move on. That's what I'd like us to do. And I usually
Agreed.
am not so directive, but in
I
this
agree.
moment, Joe, sorry, but I think we don't reopen it.
You're the boss.
Thank you. Oh, there you go. I don't get that very often. So, all right. Okay. So the technical amendment failed 5-4. Moving on to the next ones, which is over to the planning folks. Item number 6, review, discussion, and potential motions on technical amendments to articles in the 2025 annual town meeting warrants. And thank you, Stephen, for sharing. And who's going to take us through this, Megan? I called Megan, but
Here, unless it's here, but.
oh, Leslie, sorry, I didn't see you there because you must have been on my page too. We're action packed
Either
today.
one of us. I'll let Megan
Okay.
have a moment to shine at your meeting.
So the first one is a technical amendment to Article 32. This came back, the planning board reopened the public hearing because 3 Rosemary Way, the property owner expressed interest in moving to C-Tech instead of R5 after we had closed our public hearing. So the planning board did support that request as it was part of the initial article. So the board wants to keep 1 Rosemary Way, which is already a constructed single-family dwelling, to move to the R5 district, while allowing 3 Rosemary Way to move to C-Tech. That will be utilized as a commercial property, so C-Tech does make the most sense for that specific property.
Thank you. Any questions for Megan on that one? And you can see the motion is, I would suggest, similar. Committee supports the planning board motion.
So
Would
moved.
somebody like, thank you, Jill. May I have a second?
Second,
Okay, roll call, Stephen,
Aye.
Peter,
aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
me, aye. Okay. I like that I call my own name to say aye. All right, thank you. Next one. Number 3.
So the board reopened the hearing on the zoning change of a portion of 13 Woodland Drive from Lug 2 to R20. The article sponsor provided the board with an update. They changed their motion from supportive with some deed restrictions to be put into place to not to adopt, because those deed restrictions, for a variety of reasons, it's not going to be able to come together.
Okay, Stephen, this is your article?
Yes,
Even-
and I realize
so-
we're very short on time. Do you mind if I speak to it?
No, you're speaking as a citizen, not as a finance committee member. So,
Yes, yes.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. So the update that I made to the planning board was that I'm not able to make the commitments that the homes that are built on this site are attainably priced and for year-round occupancy. I needed a couple of things. I needed sewer, and I needed some commitment from the Affordable Housing Trust in order to make those things happen, based on the fact that this year's proposal was for significantly fewer dwellings than I had proposed last year. So that was the update that I made to the board. I also committed to the board that I would restrict the entire site. If this zoning change were to pass, I would restrict the entire site to a total of 9 buildable lots with 1 dwelling per lot. So a total of 9 dwellings. And there was a lot of discussion about that because the town or any municipality cannot prohibit accessory dwelling units, which are allowed by the state. And so there could be as many as 18 dwellings on 9 lots, although that's not my intention. And so since the planning board hearing, I have recorded some private deed restrictions. Private deed restrictions can restrict ADUs. Those deed restrictions are enforceable by anybody in the neighborhood. And so that's my, effort to affect the restriction against ADUs and limit the whole site to a total of 9 dwellings, which is in response to what I've heard consistently from neighbors, that density is not preferred. So this would be a reduction in the total number of dwellings that could be built on the site from 15, which could be built today, down to 9. And there's no, I will not be calling the article related to this property relative to sewer and trying to get extra bedrooms. So this would be fewer dwellings, fewer kitchens, the same number of bedrooms as what could be built today. And so thanks for the time to explain that.
Thank you, Stephen. Jill?
I got a question for you, Stephen, under lug 2, and I'm just thinking ahead, like if for some reason this didn't pass, now that I got negative motion. If you could have how many lots now?
5.
Yeah. And then with ADUs, you can have 10 dwellings, right?
Well,
Actually,
you get
15.
secondary dwellings by right, so then you get the ADUs, so you can have 15.
Yeah. So why are you going for the R20? Just have bigger houses? Because I mean, it does increase the ground cover greatly.
Yeah,
It trumps
no, actually, no, it's uniformity for the whole site. So right now we've got 4 R20 lots and then 1 lug 3 lot.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
right.
we've
You
got-
have some in R20 now. Yeah.
Yep. So the restrictions I'm talking about are not just for the lug 3 or lug 2 piece that's a 3-acre lot. It's for the entire property. And I realize it's a bit nuanced and it's 247. But yeah, essentially what I'm trying to do is not increase the number of bedrooms, decrease the number of dwellings, but have a more thoughtful site plan, which would include significant open space. I would pursue a flex development, which would have about 2 acres, a little more than 2 acres of open space. So that, in short, is the reason for the request.
But it sounds like you could still do a lot under lug 2 if this didn't work out for you.
I could, yeah. I think it'd be less attractive for the neighborhood. It would probably be duplexes and things. And again, it'd be like mostly jammed in like a portion, the 2-acre portion that's already in R20. And so I think this is a more sensitive plan to the neighborhood, but there will be, 30 bedrooms built in some configuration with or without this zoning change.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve.
Other questions for Stephen? Okay. May I have a motion? So here's the motions that are available to us. The Finance Committee supports the Planning Board motion. The Finance Committee does not support the Planning Board motion. I'm looking for a volunteer. Okay, I'm going to go. I'm making a motion that we do not support the Planning Board motion, not to adopt, that they should have adopted it.
Yep, I second that.
Thank you. Okay, we have a vote now. Stephen can't vote. Peter?
Aye.
Oops, I better keep track of the ayes and nays. Ayes, nays. Okay. Rob,
Aye.
Rob, thank you. Chris,
Denise, may I make a quick comment since we didn't have time for discussion after the
sure.
motions? Only that the time is unfortunate because I'd love to be able to go back and watch the planning board meeting, which is typically what I do in this case. So I'm feeling a little bit jammed by the timing, but I will support your motion. Aye.
Okay, or you can abstain if you feel more comfortable.
No, I'll go along with the program. Aye.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, we're having to do it in this fashion too. Jeremy,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Denise, I. Okay.
Joe,
So
aye.
the-
And
Oh, Joe, sorry. Your aye as well. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Joe. Okie dokie. All right, next one up, please. Technical Amendment 4.
Denise, this is
Oh.
simply a minor date change.
Okay,
If the wrong date is referenced as March 6th, it should say March 5th.
okay. In which case, motion to approve is written. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And here we go. Stephen,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Joe,
aye.
Aye.
Jeremy, Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Denise, I. Okay, thank you. And number 5, Libby, this is you as well, I guess?
5 was voted by the select board at its last meeting on April 16th. Not to go forward with this at this time. So we would request that this FinCom's motion be to take no action.
Okay,
Motion to take no action.
Second.
thank you. Thank you. Made by Jill, seconded by Peter. Roll call, Stephen,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill.
Aye.
Perfect. Okay, and number 6, please, Libby.
This article was thought to be a simple resubmit from the 2024 annual town meeting. However, in going through the detail of the parcels that are listed, they are not complete and we don't think they're entirely accurate. So we would like to ask that the FinCom take no action on this at this time, and we'll work on it internally for future consideration.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion to adopt the
Take no
select-
action.
Take no action, yes.
Thank you, Peter. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you. Okay, Stephen,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
and I'm aye. Thank you very much. Okay, that got us through the technical amendments. I'm expecting there won't be any Saturday morning, Brian and Libby. I think we're done on them, or?
God
Right?
willing.
Yeah, and the creeks don't rise. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Is it
I'm
done?
gonna skip committee reports and other business and ask for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Always snappy on that. Chris,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
myself, I thank you, everybody, and see you in a few minutes. Much appreciated.